Show exam grades at 23 schools are below the government's required level for the second year running. But hundreds more have done well, as Chris Howes explains.
Today, 23 schools face the possibility of closure, but the St John Cass Redcoat School in Inner London is not among them. It's officially the most improved comprehensive in the country. Just 4 years ago, fewer than 25% of pupils were scoring 5 A to C grades at GCSE. Last year it was nearly 70%. Head teacher Hayden Evans has overseen this transformation.
Obviously we're very pleased about it. Children were absolutely delighted on the day when they got their results. And a lot more of the children this year, the students this year, will be going on to post-16 studies, and a lot more of them will be doing A-levels and advanced courses.
And of course, sharing in today's success for the school are the pupils.
I feel quite proud, and I think that it's a great achievement.
It's good because it's helping the younger ones focus more as they see the older ones doing more harder work, so it pushes the younger ones.
The teachers have really been supportive, so I'm glad I've got the results that I really wanted.
Bad news though for Hengrove School in Bristol. Today's tables show it has the worst truancy rates in Britain.
Jenny? James? Judy?
Yes, miss.
Emma? No.
1 in 8 days were lost, though the head says targeting the worst offenders has improved the situation.
Regarding Daniel, we've had him down as not turning up for registration.
We chase every single one of the non-attenders. When I first came here, there was 61 long-term non-attenders, and we've now got that down to a very, very few. And 5 families we're actually taking court action on.
The government hopes that by producing tables with more than just raw exam results, it'll give parents a clearer picture of their children's schools. Chris Howes, ITV News.
Tony Blair will mount a vigorous defence of the government's controversial university top-up fees tonight. Ministers are facing bitter opposition to the plans, which could see universities in England charging students up to £3,000 a year for their courses. John Ray reports.
It's the government's university challenge, how to overcome the near universal thumbs down for their study now, pay later plans for education.
The problem is, it's all right saying the best costs money, but for those students who can't afford it, then they're not going to get the best education.
They might rather noisily plead poverty at the moment, but in a few years' time, many of these students will be high earners. The government says it's only right that they should be asked to pay back part of the costs of their education. For now, students pay £1,100 a year tuition fees. Along with living costs, it leaves them with total debts of up to £15,000. From 2006, universities will charge students up to £3,000 a year. Combined with living costs, that could leave them with debts of up to £21,000. The government wants more young people to go to college. Top universities will be told to take more from state schools.
I believe that taken as a whole, my student finance package is positive for access to universities and will reinforce the other measures on access to which I referred earlier.
But the Tories say it's a broken Labour promise.
In 2001, they promised no top-up fees. Today, they're introducing top-up fees. One fact is clear from today's statement. No parent and no student will ever again trust any Labour promise on education.
Mr Clark had to fight the Chancellor to put his plans in place. We watched with another critic, Will Straw, son of the Foreign Secretary and leader of students at Oxford. He says elite universities will charge the most and exclude the poorest.
You charge more for a good course, you're going to get only people who can afford to go there going to it.
14-year-old David Franklin plans to train as a lawyer in 4 years' time, just as the fees are coming in. His family say it's they who'll end up paying.
They're talking about people from the poorer classes having more access, but in reality the ones that it's going to put the strain on are those that are in the middle class yet again.
And that's what frightens the government, not the students who protest, but the parents who say they already pay too much. John Ray, ITV News, Oxford.
Talks begin today.
On a lonely road in Africa, a 36-year-old mother of 3 prepares for an extraordinary comeback. In another life, Zola Budd-Pieterse was one of the most controversial figures in sport, the teenage running sensation Zola Budd. Now she's training for the London Marathon.
I don't expect any fireworks to run at the same level I used to, no. You have to take your circumstances into consideration. It's difficult because of the 3 kids, because you don't have time to recover. After your run, you're off to school and it's homework in the afternoon.
The quiet roads now used for training by Zola Pieterse are very different from the turbulent path that once confronted the teenage Zola Budd. Demonstrators protesting the old apartheid system dogged her every step.
As unfortunately she has to run round an interloper who's run onto the track.
There was anger that she'd been given a British passport and could avoid the sporting ban on South Africa. At the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics, another row as she brought down America's Mary Decker in the 3,000 metres. No one knows more about the dangerous mixture of politics and sport. And today, Zola Pieterse's sympathies lie with England's cricketers in the controversy over visiting Zimbabwe.
Yes, it's farcical. I think, to put my foot in it, Tony Blair should have sorted it out politically, the situation in Zimbabwe, a long time ago, and not leave it to the cricketers. They're using the sports people to their own advantage because maybe they're too scared to do anything, so the sports people have to make statements and be involved in situations which they should not.
She once held world records. Now she just wants a respectable time in her first competitive marathon. Tim Ewart, ITV News, South Africa.
There's been praise for the extraordinary efforts made to fly a seriously ill baby from London to hospital in Glasgow. 2 helicopters and 2 planes were involved. One of them was a jet usually used by the royal family. From Glasgow, Martin Geisler reports.
It may be part of the Queen's flight, but on the most important journey this aircraft has ever made, the key passenger was a 7-day-old baby from South London. The child, whose identity is being protected, has a rare breathing problem. It was rushed almost the length of the country to York Hill in Glasgow, the only British hospital with the necessary space and equipment. It was an extraordinary journey. 4 aircraft were involved. A helicopter took doctors from Glasgow to London to look after the baby. They were met by an RAF Hercules, which had arrived to take the child north. The plane, though, burst a tyre, and a second helicopter was scrambled. But in the meantime, a Royal Squadron plane was found to take the baby to Glasgow.
Yeah, the baby is now stable. The baby is on ECMO support. This means that we are providing temporary lung support for the baby using an artificial circuit.
Even by the standards of this children's hospital, it was a remarkable delivery. The baby, who has already received help from the least likely sources, is now in the best possible hands. Martin Geisler, ITV News, Glasgow.
Football and Manchester.
The Prime Minister is going to be back in action on the domestic front today, and he's going to be talking about reform and modernisation, saying, look, despite what's going on in Iraq, we're still in this country, not Iraq, and it's really important that we push through all these reforms, and modernisation is really important for social justice. He seems to just have someone's reminded him that this is the place, this is the country that he's running, and he's a bit worried perhaps about some domestic support and some of the big issues facing us in this country. It seems to have reminded him about that, and that's the big speech today.
So obviously actually quite an important speech then.
Yeah, very important, because yesterday in the House of Commons there was the big announcement about college fees, and Labour MPs, don't forget this is the bedrock of Mr Blair's political support, they are really worried about university fees. I think they've been hearing on the doorsteps people saying to them, you mean we're going to have to pay for university? People are desperately angry and worried about this, and perhaps the government has realised that this potentially is an election loser for them.
It's not just, of course, university fees that people are talking about at the moment, is it? It's the fire strikes, still, of course, some planned for next week.
Yeah, there's also the hospitals, foundation hospitals going on. The fire strike, of course, terribly important because that is involving lots of soldiers, and they're meant to be over in Iraq, fighting potentially a war over there. So it seems that maybe in the last couple of weeks the government may have taken its eye off the ball a bit on the home front, on the domestic front, and this is what the Prime Minister today is going to leap up and remind us that he's really in charge of things here.
Quentin, thank you very much.
Bringing us the rest of the news this morning, Amanda.
Thank you, Andrew.